Well, I suppose the first thing we both said is that part of my argument, which sounds an incredible cop-out, is that if people talk about it a lot, we've already won. The fact that actually, and Daniel Kahneman said this when he came to the IPA, which was, my biggest hope for this discipline is it will change the nature of gossip and conversation, and that when people discuss the behaviour of other people, they will factor in some of these terms and biases and tendencies and so on. And actually, one of the most valuable things I think that's happened here is we've created within agencies, I hope, what you might call a conversational space. When I was involved in pitches in sort of 1992, there'd be loads of people obsessing about the proposition or what the poster said, and I go, but the application form is really difficult to fill in. And people will go, yes, Rory, and as you said, we probably don't need you for the next meeting kind of stuff. Now, my argument is, if the application form's rubbish, it doesn't matter how good your poster is, it's only working at half efficiency. In fact, it's worse than that, because you'll drive a lot of people to get an application form who then won't be bothered to fill it in. And my argument will be that probably the biggest gain you could get, and certainly the thing you ought to optimise first, is the behavioural detail close to the point of purchase. And you should start from the back with small things and work outwards, whereas advertising always started from a far away point and attempted to work in. Now, if we can just change the conversation, so when people say, and they may use a little bit of phraseology from behavioural science about chunking, and that's a bonus, but if they can actually have a conversation about that stuff, and it's acknowledged that that stuff is now important, then we're already more than halfway there.
I think a second thing I'd say, which kind of builds on that, is how useful it is to put behaviour at the heart of what we do. So if you start the conversation with behaviour, and it has the advantage that it translates to business straight away, so you suddenly can have that conversation legitimately. So we create a conversational space, but people buy that their advertising agency understand how an application form should work. It's just we put ourselves in a place where we couldn't have that conversation, which was crazy, because no one disbelieves you when you talk about that stuff, or talk about shelf layout or any of these kind of things which are apparently not your business. But as soon as you talk about, well, we understand why people do what they do, they're perfectly happy for you to come and do that. So you create that, and as we were saying before, that you create that conversational space, but behaviour translates instantly to sort of cash, money in the pocket. So you can have. It means,
or in the social sciences, if you're doing social marketing, it translates patently to a quantifiable gain or advantage. If people stop going to A&E when they've got a hurt finger, we can put a cash value on that change in behaviour. Whereas if you change people's attitudes to A&E in some way, you can't achieve that same equation.
And you do have that effect. You run workshops where before they bring someone along from sales or even from finance who has to and they look bored and bad-tempered all day because there's why am I here talking about how this brand is like a Greek goddess or something like that. But you talk about the behavioural stuff and they are probably the most excited person, because they
or people from operations.
Operations, they love it, because they go, well, what I need is another 20% of people to do this, or to stop doing
or to stop doing
or
that,
to spend less time doing that, to do that quicker, and they're suddenly going and they're not doing it, and I can see now how I can make that happen. So it really changes how you can talk about business and where we stand in the relationship. I think that's very, it's just generally better for everyone. It's happier for everyone.
And as you said additionally, I mean, any behavioural conversation and any brief that starts with a behavioural objective is automatically media neutral. That's another point, which is you don't need to tell creatives to be media neutral or anything like that. A good creative, if you say we want people to stop doing this and start doing that, any good creative person will start looking at design solutions. They'll start looking at new product development ideas, for that matter. And so what was dubious about having the brief as what do we want people to think was, naturally, if you want people to think things, then 2 or 3 media automatically come to mind as the default.
You need to give them a message.
Because you've got to give them a message, therefore you need a message carrying medium. Now, the other thing is you need also to convey that message explicitly. Now, of course, good design or good behavioural science quite often actually achieves behavioural change through purely implicit means.
It's one of those old-fashioned copywriting challenges you used to get given in copywriting schools. There was this writer's sign to get people to wash their feet before going in the swimming bowl.
People who'd been playing squash, it was a J. Walter Thompson copy test from the 1970s, which you had to write in as few words as possible, a sign that told people at a country club, because this is J. Walter Thompson, pubs, and so, rather than a leisure centre. I think what is it exactly? You had to tell people at a country club who'd been playing squash to shower before using the swimming pool. And the brief was, using as few words as possible, put a message at the entrance to the swimming pool. And the behavioural solution to that is interesting. It's nothing to do with the message. It's don't put the bloody notice at the entrance to the swimming pool, put it at the exit to the squash courts.
Yeah.
Because the likelihood that they'll actually have a shower, the likelihood that anybody on the point of jumping into the pool is going to go, gosh, I must walk back 50 yards and shower, is very low. So nudging someone at the point when they leave the squash court, it's actually pretty likely that they'll shower.
Which is why the question, how to write a sign, is a bad question.
Because where to put the sign.
Whereas the question is, how do you stop people doing this, which allows you to think about when you tell them, which is the real key to the problem.
Yeah.
So by concentrating on the behaviour you want them to do rather than how you will bring about the change with a sign, that presupposition, actually that's what makes it a hard challenge, is that
So putting things asking questions or putting messages in the wrong place or the wrong moment is a disaster. So one of the things we talked about during the webinar was that whole business of websites which ask you what class would you like to travel on the train or on the plane before you know the date or before they know what the price differences is. It's a daft question because that's like asking you which one would you prefer, the expensive one or the cheap one? What's the difference in price? Oh, I can't tell you. No one can make that decision. So what was daft about that was actually it was asking people to make a decision at a point where they didn't have the information to make that decision adequately. And I think the number of cases where that actually pertains, I find that absolutely fascinating, that actually people think that decision making is a kind of linear tree-like thing, and they forget that actually new information comes in which may force you to reappraise a decision you made earlier in the process. And actually, I think we could actually lead to a better era of decision design and web design if people realised that you need paths, people need to have exit lanes from time to time, if they, from a course of action.
Yeah. So those would be the three things, wouldn't they? So we've changed the conversation.
Yep.
We've put the behaviour at the heart of our business and therefore connected with business. And behaviour allows us to be media neutral in a way we've never managed before.